Captain Ethan Hayes stared at the holographic map projected above his desk. Stars flickered in the display, each one representing a distant world, but his eyes focused on a small blue-green planet orbiting a binary star system. This was Xiforia, a world humans had only recently discovered, yet one that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. The room was quiet except for the low hum of the ship's engines. Ethan rubbed his eyes and let out a long sigh. His latest orders had come straight from the United Nations Space Command, a rare combination of military and diplomatic duty. Most soldiers spent their days in training simulations or guarding outposts, but Ethan had been assigned something much more unusual. He was to act as a liaison between humans and the Xiforian kingdom, a civilization known for its advanced technology and strict hierarchical society. He had read reports describing the Xiforians, tall, scaled, and alien in ways humans could barely imagine. Their society was structured around honor, intellect, and loyalty. The mission's purpose was clear: prevent conflict and ensure peaceful coexistence. Yet the more Ethan learned, the more he realized that success would not depend on weapons or strategy alone. It would depend on human judgment, empathy, and courage. A knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. Lieutenant Marla Chen entered, carrying a stack of dossiers. "Captain Hayes," she said, her tone formal yet tinged with curiosity. "The command has prepared the briefing. You are to meet the Xiforian princess upon arrival. Her name is Glora." Ethan frowned. Glora? He had expected a stern ruler, someone whose reputation preceded her. "Do we have images?" Marla nodded, handing him a data pad. Ethan glanced at the holographic image. The figure that appeared made him pause. Princess Glora was unusual. By human standards, she was not beautiful. Her skin had a rough, scaled texture with a muted green tint. Her eyes were large but slightly asymmetrical, and her facial features seemed uneven in ways that would be considered awkward on Earth. Yet, there was something striking about her presence. She carried herself with an air of quiet authority, and her posture suggested intelligence and confidence. Ethan blinked and looked back at Marla. I guess looks aren't the point," he said, forcing a chuckle. Marla smiled faintly. "Command expects you to focus on her leadership and intellect. The alliance is vital. You'll need to earn her trust." Ethan nodded. The idea of diplomacy was not new to him, but working side by side with a princess, an alien one at that, was uncharted territory. Still, he felt a spark of curiosity. There was something about this mission that promised adventure, challenge, and perhaps understanding beyond his experience. The journey to Xiforia was long. Ethan spent the hours in transit reviewing reports, studying Xiforian customs, and running simulations for potential conflict scenarios. The closer they approached the planet, the more he felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. The Xiforian capital, with its crystalline towers and floating bridges, emerged from the clouds like a dream. Ships and drones zipped along energy lanes, carrying goods and citizens through the bustling city. Humans were few in number, and their presence had already drawn curious stares. Upon landing at the royal docking station, Ethan was greeted by a delegation of Xiforian officials. Their voices were musical yet strange, resonating with tones humans could barely reproduce. At the front of the group stood Princess Glora herself. She approached with deliberate steps, scanning Ethan with her large green eyes. There was no immediate smile, no attempt to charm or disarm him. Instead, she studied him as one studies an unknown element, careful, analytical, and calm. Ethan felt a flicker of respect. She may not have been beautiful in his eyes, but there was something commanding about her, something unshakable and real. "Captain Hayes," she said, her voice resonating in a rhythm that was almost musical. "Welcome to Xiforia. I trust your journey was uneventful." "Thank you, Princess," Ethan replied. "The trip was smooth. Your people's technology is impressive." Glora's thin lips curved in the hint of a smile. "We value efficiency," she said simply, "but efficiency alone will not prevent the unrest at our borders." Ethan nodded. understanding that this mission would require more than polite conversation. "That's why I'm here. I want to understand your needs, your concerns, and help wherever I can." Their initial conversation was formal, but as they walked through the royal halls, Ethan noticed how Glora observed everything, from the design of the corridors to the expressions of her people. Her attention to detail was impressive, but so was her restraint. She never judged or dismissed anyone outright, even when dealing with complaints from citizens or officials. Later, Ethan was shown to his quarters in the palace. The room was modest but functional, with panoramic views of the city below. He unpacked his gear, but his thoughts kept drifting back to the princess. He realized he had never met a leader like her, someone so disciplined, so composed, yet clearly capable of empathy and insight. As night fell on Zyphoria, alarms rang through the city. Ethan leapt to his feet, grabbing his uniform and weapons. Reports came quickly. A rival faction had launched a surprise attack on the outskirts of the capital. Though he was primarily there for diplomacy, Ethan had been trained for combat. His instincts kicked in. Glora appeared at the command center, her eyes calm despite the chaos. "Ethan Hayes," she said, "your experience may be useful. Will you assist?" Ethan nodded. "Yes, Princess. What's the situation?" She explained the attack. A small but highly trained force of mercenaries and rogue alien soldiers had struck several key infrastructure points, attempting to destabilize the kingdom. Ethan quickly assessed the situation and offered a plan. He would coordinate human defense units, guide civilian evacuation, and secure strategic zones until Zyphorian reinforcements arrived. The battle was tense. Ethan's training was put to the test as he moved through the city, dodging energy blasts, directing troops, and rescuing citizens from dangerous zones. Meanwhile, Glora coordinated the palace staff and loyal guards with remarkable calm, issuing clear, precise orders. At one point, a building threatened to collapse on a group of children, and she acted without hesitation, guiding them to safety with strategic commands. Ethan realized that her outward appearance did not define her worth or ability. Glora's bravery, intellect, and quick thinking were qualities he had respected in many leaders, but rarely witnessed firsthand. In the midst of chaos, she had shown the very traits that made a great leader: courage, compassion, and decisiveness. When so, the attack was finally repelled. The city was battered, but alive. Ethan stood next to Glora on a balcony overlooking the streets below. Fires burned in controlled zones. Emergency teams moved efficiently, and citizens cautiously returned to their routines. "You handled yourself well," Glora said quietly. "Your humans are more capable than I expected." Ethan smiled. "I could say the same about you. You stayed calm when everything was falling apart. That's impressive." Glora tilted her head slightly. "Appearances can be deceiving," she said. "What matters is action, not what others think." Ethan thought about her words. They carried weight. In a galaxy where first impressions often determined alliances, Glora reminded him that true value comes from deeds, not looks. That night, Ethan lay awake in his quarters thinking about the events of the day. He realized that his mission was no longer just about diplomacy. It was about understanding a culture, a leader, and perhaps himself in ways he had never imagined. He wondered what the coming days would bring, how he would navigate the delicate balance of duty, respect, and growing admiration for the alien princess. Little did he know, this was only the beginning. The challenges ahead would test his courage, his judgment, and his perception of beauty and value. By the end of this assignment, Ethan Hayes would come to understand that true heroism and loyalty often reveal themselves in the most unexpected places and in the most unexpected people. The morning sun rose over the Zyphorian capital, casting golden reflections off the crystalline towers. Captain Ethan Hayes woke to the soft hum of the palace, the energy fields and drones moving through the city with precision. Though the night had been long and tense, the city had survived. Yet Ethan knew peace was temporary. The rival faction that had attacked yesterday could strike again at any moment. He dressed quickly and headed to the command center, where Princess Glora had already arrived. She was reviewing reports, her large green eyes scanning the data carefully. Her scaled hands moved over the holographic display, rearranging units and planning evacuation routes. Ethan watched silently for a moment, impressed. Yesterday, he had seen her courage in action, but today he saw her strategic mind at work. "Captain Hayes," Glora said without looking up. "I trust you are ready. The scouts report unusual activity near the northern perimeter. It is likely the rival faction is regrouping." Ethan nodded. "I'll coordinate with the human units. We'll reinforce the perimeter and set up defensive positions." Glora's gaze met his. "Good. But remember, efficiency alone will not protect the citizens. Their morale is as important as the defenses. Be mindful of that." Ethan smiled, faintly. She was always thinking beyond the obvious, an instinct that could save lives. "Understood, Princess. I'll make sure the citizens feel safe while we defend the city." The next few hours were a test of coordination, patience, and strategy. Ethan led a small squad of human soldiers, moving swiftly across the northern sector. Energy barriers were activated, communication drones relayed information, and citizens were guided to safe zones. The rival faction appeared as predicted, swift, organized, and aggressive, but Ethan's preparation and Glora's prior planning made a difference. In the middle of the skirmish, Ethan noticed Glora moving through the command center, monitoring both the battle and the city's welfare. She noticed a civilian trapped near a collapsing transport hub. Without hesitation, she activated an emergency response drone and directed a team of Xiphorian guards to assist. Ethan paused for a moment, recognizing the selfless decisiveness in her actions. Most leaders would have remained behind, issuing orders from safety. Glora had chosen to act directly. During a brief lull in the fighting, Ethan approached her. "You could have stayed in the command center," he said. "It would have been safer." Glora looked at him, her expression calm but firm. "Safety is relative," she said. "If I cannot act to protect my people, who will? Leadership is not about hiding, it is about responsibility." Ethan felt a deep respect for her. He realized that her appearance, rough skin, uneven features, and unusual proportions, meant nothing. Her character, courage, and intelligence were what defined her. And in that moment, Ethan began to see her differently, not as someone he might judge superficially, but as a person worthy of admiration and trust. The battle intensified when a group of mercenaries attempted to flank the city, targeting vital energy conduits. Ethan's squad engaged them, but the enemy was persistent. Amid the chaos, a Xiphorian officer was caught in an energy trap. Without thinking, Ethan leapt forward, using his body to shield the officer as the trap activated. Sparks flew, and the officer scrambled to safety. Glora observed the rescue from the balcony above. She nodded silently at Ethan, a gesture of acknowledgement that needed no words. It was clear she valued courage and loyalty, traits that humans often prided themselves on, but she measured by action, not by reputation. After hours of conflict, the city's defenses held. The rival faction withdrew, frustrated and beaten. Citizens emerged from shelters, cheering cautiously as emergency crews began repairs. Ethan felt exhaustion settle into his bones, but he also felt a strange sense of pride. They had survived, not just because of technology or numbers, but because leadership and courage had guided them. As the sun set, Ethan and Glora walked through the streets to inspect the damage. Debris was everywhere, yet the people moved with resilience, cleaning, repairing, and comforting each other. Glora stopped near a group of children who were rebuilding a small playground. She knelt, her rough-scaled hands gentle as she helped them lift a beam into place. Ethan watched quietly, heartened. Her hands, so alien in appearance, moved with care and purpose, helping those who could not help themselves. It was a simple act, yet it spoke volumes about her compassion and empathy. "You never rest," Ethan said softly. Glora looked at him, her large eyes reflecting the fading sunlight. "Rest comes when the work is done," she replied. "And The work is never truly finished. Ethan nodded, understanding that she was not like anyone he had ever met. She was strong, wise, and deeply committed to her people. And yet, there was no arrogance in her behavior, only responsibility. Over the next few days, Ethan and Glora continued to work together. They held meetings with city officials, evaluated security protocols, and coordinated with human and Xiphorian soldiers. In quieter moments, they shared conversations about their respective worlds. Ethan learned about Xiphorian history, their philosophy, and their dedication to knowledge and honor. Glora learned about human culture, Earth's struggles, and the ideals that drove the United Nations Space Command. Through these discussions, Ethan saw the depth of her understanding and curiosity. She asked thoughtful questions, challenged assumptions, and offered insights that even experienced diplomats had overlooked. Her appearance mattered less and less to him. What mattered was her mind, her courage, and her heart. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day, Ethan and Glora sat on a balcony overlooking the city. The night sky was filled with stars, some familiar, others alien, twinkling against the deep blue of Xiphoria's atmosphere. "You've adapted well to this world," Glora said, breaking the silence. "Most humans would have struggled to understand our customs and our technology." Ethan smiled. "It helps to have a teacher who doesn't judge mistakes too harshly." Glora tilted her head, a small smile playing on her lips. "I do not judge you by what you lack, Captain Hayes. I value your actions, your honesty, and your courage. You are different from what I expected humans to be." Ethan felt a warmth spread through him. Her words were unexpected, yet they resonated deeply. For the first time, he realized that admiration could grow into something more meaningful, something beyond duty and respect. The next day brought a new challenge. Scouts reported that the rival faction had regrouped in a remote valley, planning another strike. This time the threat was not just to the city, but to the entire kingdom's energy grid. Ethan and Glora convened a council to plan their response. Direct confrontation may be too risky, Ethan suggested. "We need a strategy that uses our knowledge of the terrain and the enemy's weaknesses." Glora nodded thoughtfully. "Agreed. We will use precision and coordination rather than brute force. Human ingenuity combined with Xiphorian technology can outmaneuver them." Their plan required perfect timing and trust between human and Xiphorian units. Ethan was impressed by Glora's ability to balance strategy with empathy, assigning roles that ensured both soldiers and civilians were safe while maintaining the upper hand against the enemy. The operation was executed flawlessly. Ethan led a team to disrupt the enemy's communications while Glora coordinated defensive strikes and evacuations. The rival faction was caught off guard, unable to adapt to the combined strategy. By the end of the day, the valley was secure, and the threat had been neutralized. During the celebrations that followed, Ethan saw how Glora treated every participant with respect. She praised not only leaders, but also the lowest-ranked soldiers and volunteers. Her recognition was genuine, and it fostered loyalty and admiration among her people. Ethan finally understood something fundamental. Leadership, courage, and compassion were the true markers of beauty and value. Glora might have been considered unattractive by superficial standards, but her character radiated strength and worth far beyond appearances. That evening, as Ethan returned to his quarters, he reflected on the events of the past week. The battles, the planning, and the quiet moments of understanding had changed him. He realized that he had begun to admire Glora, not just as a princess or a leader, but as a person, someone whose qualities inspired him to be better, braver, and wiser. He knew the journey ahead would be difficult. The rival faction would return, diplomacy would be tested, and both humans and Xiphorians would face challenges. But Ethan also knew something else. The bond he was forming with Glora was unshakable and true, based not on appearances, but on respect, courage, and shared experience. As the night deepened, Ethan looked out at the twinkling lights of the city. In the quiet moments, he felt a sense of purpose and connection that he had never experienced before. Princess Glora, the alien leader who many might dismiss as unattractive, had shown him the true meaning of courage and character. And in doing so, she had unknowingly begun to capture his admiration and perhaps one day his heart. The city of Xiphoria had settled into a quiet rhythm after the recent attacks. Streets were filled with citizens going about their daily tasks, repairing damage, and resuming their lives. Yet beneath the calm, both Ethan Hayes and Princess Glora knew that peace was fragile. Their recent battles had revealed not only the strength of the kingdom's enemies, but also the resilience and potential of Xiphoria's people. Ethan had grown accustomed to the palace's routines, but he still found himself learning something new every day. Glora's leadership style fascinated him. Unlike most rulers he had known, she combined strategy, empathy, and foresight in ways that seemed natural to her. She did not command out of fear or tradition, she led through understanding and action. One morning, Ethan accompanied Glora to inspect the city's energy hubs. These towers were the heart of Xiphoria's power, providing light, transportation, and defense systems. As they walked, Glora explained the intricate workings of the machinery and the careful planning required to maintain stability. "You notice things differently than most humans," Glora observed, glancing at him. "You ask questions about efficiency and safety in ways that are thoughtful." Ethan smiled. "I've learned to pay attention. Your people depend on these systems, and any mistake could be dangerous." Glora nodded, her large green eyes studying him. "Exactly. And yet, humans often underestimate the power of patience and observation. You seem different." Ethan felt a strange warmth at her words. She was acknowledging not just his competence, but his perspective and judgment. In that moment he realized that Glora saw beyond the superficial. She measured people by their actions, intelligence, and intentions. As the day progressed, they encountered several challenges at the energy hubs. A minor malfunction in one tower threatened to overload the city's energy grid. Technicians scrambled to contain it, but the situation was delicate. Glora quickly assessed the problem and directed the team to isolate the malfunction while maintaining power to essential sectors. Ethan followed her instructions, coordinating human engineers with Xiphorian technicians. Together, they worked in perfect synchronization, solving the crisis before it escalated. By the end of the day, the energy hub was fully operational, and the citizens' lives remained unaffected. During the return to the palace, Ethan realized how much he had come to respect Glora, not for appearances but for her mind and character. He had faced countless leaders and warriors in his career, yet few had inspired the sense of admiration that he now felt. She was brilliant, brave, and compassionate, qualities that shone brighter than any physical beauty. Over the next several days, Ethan and Glora began spending more time together outside official duties. They shared meals in quiet corners of the palace, discussed cultural differences, and even laughed over stories of human mistakes and Xiphorian quirks. One afternoon, they walked through a palace garden filled with alien flora, their bioluminescent petals glowing softly. Glora paused at a plant with twisting stems and vibrant blue blooms. "This is called a lunaris vine," she explained. "It grows slowly, but its roots are strong. It reminds me that growth, real growth, takes time and patience." Ethan looked at her, fascinated. "You always seem to find lessons in everything." Glora smiled faintly. "Lessons are everywhere if you choose to see them. Humans often rush, but patience brings understanding." Their conversations became a ritual. Ethan shared stories of his childhood on Earth, his training as a soldier, and the experiences that shaped him. Glora revealed aspects of her life he had never expected. Her rigorous education, the pressures of the royal family, and the loneliness of being a future ruler in a world that demanded perfection. Through these moments, Ethan realized that Glora's strength was not only in leadership, but in vulnerability and honesty. She did not hide her fears or doubts, but faced them with determination. He felt a growing connection, a sense of trust and understanding that transcended the boundaries of species. One evening, the palace received a distress call. A small group of civilians had been trapped in a remote district by a sudden structural collapse. Without hesitation, Ethan and Glora led a rescue operation. The scene was chaotic. Rubble blocked streets, energy lines sparked dangerously, and frightened citizens called for help. Ethan directed human engineers while Glora coordinated Xiphorian rescue units. Together they moved efficiently, guiding civilians to safety. At one point, a young Xiphorian child was trapped under a heavy beam. Ethan tried to lift it, but the weight was too great. Glora arrived beside him, assessing the situation. "We need leverage, not force," she said calmly. Using a combination of energy tools and teamwork, they freed the child safely. As they watched the child reunite with their family, Ethan felt a deep admiration for Glora. Her actions were decisive, compassionate, and intelligent. He realized that true beauty and leadership were measured not by appearance but by deeds and character. Later that night, as they returned to the palace, Ethan found himself walking beside Glora in thoughtful silence. The city lights reflected off her scaled skin, casting soft shadows. He hesitated before speaking, unsure how to express the growing respect and admiration he felt. "You did well today," he said finally. You inspired everyone. Not just the soldiers, but the citizens too." Glora glanced at him, her eyes meeting his. "And you, Captain Hayes. You acted with courage and calm when it mattered most. Your people and mine, they can rely on you." "That is rare." Ethan's heart quickened. He realized that admiration had shifted into something deeper. He cared for her, not because of her appearance, but because of her courage, intelligence, and integrity. Over the next few weeks, they continued to work together closely. Diplomatic meetings, infrastructure inspections, and military coordination filled their days. With each shared challenge, Ethan and Glora learned to anticipate each other's thoughts, respect each other's judgments, and support each other. Under pressure, Ethan noticed how other humans often underestimated Glora, commenting on her appearance or expressing doubt in her leadership. Each time, he found himself defending her with quiet conviction, surprising even himself. It was no longer about duty, it was about respect and recognition of her true worth. One afternoon, a human diplomat made an offhand comment about Glora's appearance during a council meeting. The diplomat laughed, assuming the remark was harmless. Ethan stood abruptly. "Princess Glora's value is measured by her actions, her intelligence, and her courage, not by appearances," he said firmly. The room went silent. Glora's eyes softened with appreciation. "Thank you, Captain Hayes," she said quietly. "Your loyalty is remarkable." Ethan realized then that his feelings were changing in ways he had not anticipated. Admiration had become respect, respect had become trust, and trust had begun to blossom into genuine affection. Days turned into weeks, and the bond between Ethan and Glora deepened. They shared quiet moments in the palace gardens, late-night discussions on strategy, and even small personal confessions. Ethan learned that Glora enjoyed humor, music, and stories from Earth, while she discovered that Ethan valued honesty, courage, and moral integrity above all else. One evening, during a walk along the city walls, they paused to watch the stars. Xiphoria's twin moons reflected off the crystalline towers, casting a soft glow. "You see the galaxy differently than most humans," Glora said softly. "You notice the connections between people, between events. That is rare." Ethan smiled. "I think it's because I've been lucky enough to work alongside someone who shows what true leadership and courage mean." Glora looked at him, a faint smile on her lips. "And yet humans often value what is superficial. You see what truly matters." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest. He realized that Glora's words reflected his own growing understanding. True beauty, courage, and value are found in actions, character, and heart, not in appearances. That night, Ethan returned to his quarters, reflecting on the past weeks. The battles, the shared victories, and the quiet conversations had changed him. He no longer saw Glora merely as an alien princess or a leader to respect. He saw her as a person of integrity, strength, and warmth. someone he admired deeply, and perhaps someone he could grow to love. As he looked out over the glowing city, Ethan understood something fundamental. In a universe filled with prejudice and superficial judgment, the qualities that truly mattered, courage, compassion, intelligence, were often overlooked. Princess Glora, in her quiet, steadfast way, had shown him the value of seeing beyond the surface, and in doing so, she had begun to capture his respect, admiration, and a place in his heart that no one else had held before. The bond they had formed was no longer just about duty or collaboration. It was a connection built on trust, understanding, and shared experience. And as the stars shone above Xiforia, Ethan felt certain that this connection would shape not only his future, but perhaps the future of their worlds as well. The morning air over Xiforia was crisp, with sunlight reflecting off the crystalline towers like scattered jewels. Despite the recent victories, tension lingered. Ethan Hayes could sense it. The city was calm, but the rival faction was still out there, plotting, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Ethan joined Princess Glora in the palace command center, where holographic maps flickered with movement. Glora's eyes scanned every detail, from troop positions to supply routes, with precision that amazed him. Though her appearance was unlike anything humans considered traditionally attractive, Ethan had long stopped noticing such things. Her confidence, intelligence, and courage were far more compelling. "Captain Hayes," Glora said, her voice calm but firm. "Intelligence reports indicate that the rival faction is concentrating forces near the Eastern Energy Corridor. If they breach it, they could disable half the city's defense systems." Ethan's jaw tightened. "We can't let that happen. I'll coordinate the human units and prepare an ambush, but we'll need your guidance to protect the civilians." Glora nodded. "Agreed. I will oversee evacuation and defensive positioning. Timing and coordination will be essential. The plan required perfect synchronization between human and Xiforian forces." Ethan took command of a small squad, moving quickly to set up strategic positions along the eastern corridor. Meanwhile, Glora coordinated from the command center, issuing precise instructions to Xiforian units. As the sun climbed higher, alarms rang throughout the city. The rival faction had attacked. They came in waves of fast-moving skimmers and heavily armored ground units aiming to overwhelm the defenses. Ethan's squad engaged them immediately, using a combination of human tactics and Xiforian energy shields. During the battle, Ethan noticed something remarkable. Glora had left the safety of the command center and moved to the front line, coordinating evacuation units and guiding citizens to safety. Her scaled hands activated control panels, rerouting power and opening safe corridors for fleeing civilians. She did not hesitate, even when danger surrounded her. Ethan realized that her courage matched or even exceeded his own. He had faced countless battles in human military history, but Glora faced threats with calm intelligence and bravery, risking herself to save others. He felt a surge of admiration and a growing awareness that his feelings for her were deepening. Particularly dangerous moment arrived when the rival faction targeted a critical junction where energy conduits intersected. Explosions rocked the ground and debris flew through the air. A group of Xiforian civilians was trapped under fallen rubble. Without thinking, Ethan dashed forward to lift the debris, using all his strength. Glora arrived beside him, assessing the situation with her sharp mind. "We need leverage and coordination," she instructed, activating a mechanical lifting device. Together they freed the trapped civilians, guiding them to safety. Ethan glanced at her, breathing heavily from the exertion. "You never stop," he said, admiration clear in his voice. Glora shook her head slightly, her green eyes calm. "A leader does not stop. The people depend on us. Courage and action define responsibility." Ethan's heart swelled. Here was a princess who faced danger without hesitation or fear, yet who also valued intelligence, compassion, and planning. He had never met anyone like her, someone so capable, so brave, and yet so selfless. The battle raged on, with both sides demonstrating determination and skill. Ethan coordinated human units, directing them to key positions while Glora guided Xiforian troops in tandem. Their teamwork was seamless, almost instinctual. Together, they turned the tide of the battle, repelling the rival faction from the city's eastern corridor. As the enemy retreated, Ethan and Glora stood atop a damaged watchtower, surveying the aftermath. Fires burned in controlled areas. Citizens emerged cautiously from shelters, and emergency crews began clearing rubble. Despite exhaustion, Ethan felt a sense of pride and respect, unlike anything he had experienced before. "You were amazing," Ethan said softly. "I've never seen someone handle a crisis like that." Glora looked at him, her scaled face reflecting a faint glow from the city below. "You were remarkable as well. Your courage, judgment, and willingness to act, they inspire confidence. Your people can trust you just as mine do." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest. He realized that the admiration he had for Glora had grown into something far deeper. Trust, respect, and perhaps the beginning of love. He understood that his feelings were no longer superficial. He valued her mind, heart, and character above all else. In the days that followed, the city slowly returned to normal. Repairs were made, citizens resumed their daily routines, and both humans and Zephyrians worked side by side to ensure the safety and stability of their world. Ethan and Glora continued to spend time together, walking through the palace gardens, discussing strategy, and sharing quiet moments of reflection. One evening, after a long day of planning and recovery, Ethan and Glora found themselves on a balcony overlooking the city. The twin moons reflected off the crystalline towers, casting a serene glow. "Do you ever wonder if your people truly understand what it means to lead?" Ethan asked quietly. Glora's eyes met his. "Many do not. Leadership is not about appearances or commands. It is about understanding, action, and responsibility. Those who see only the surface cannot comprehend the weight of guiding others." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "I think I understand now. It's not what others think that matters. It's what you do, how you act, and how you treat people." Glora smiled faintly. "Exactly, and you seem to understand it too." For a long moment they stood in silence, the city below alive with light and motion. Ethan felt an unspoken connection between them, a bond forged through shared danger, mutual respect, and growing admiration. Yet a new challenge loomed. Scouts reported that the rival faction was regrouping, preparing for a final assault that could threaten not just the city but the entire kingdom. Ethan and Glora convened a council to prepare. "This will require everything we've learned," Glora said, her voice steady. "Strategy, courage, and coordination. We cannot fail." Ethan felt the weight of the moment. The decision to act, to lead, and to protect was no longer just a matter of duty. It was a choice that defined who he was as a soldier, a human, and a partner. The day of the final attack arrived. The rival faction struck with unprecedented force, targeting the palace and energy hubs simultaneously. Ethan led a squad to defend key junctions, while Glora coordinated civilian evacuation and troop movements. The battle was intense, with explosions, energy blasts, and debris filling the air. At one point, a bridge critical to the city's defense was set to collapse under enemy fire. Ethan rushed to secure it, but he realized that the only way to save both the bridge and the civilians on it was to stay and stabilize it himself. Glora arrived beside him, assessing the situation quickly. "You cannot do this alone," she said firmly. "I have to," Ethan replied. "If I don't, they'll suffer." Glora nodded, her eyes reflecting determination. "Then we do it together." Using a combination of human strength and Zyphorian technology, they reinforced the bridge, guiding civilians to safety. Every action required trust, coordination, and courage. And through it all, Ethan realized that his admiration for Glora had grown into something irreplaceable. Her bravery, intelligence, and selflessness matched his own commitment to duty. When the rival faction finally retreated, the city was battered but secure. Ethan and Glora stood together on a hill overlooking the palace, breathing heavily from the exertion. They had faced danger side by side, each saving lives and protecting the city through combined effort. "You chose to act," Glora said quietly, her scaled hands resting on the railing. Even when it was dangerous. That is what defines a leader and a soldier. Ethan looked at her, his heart full. And you? You acted with courage, intelligence, and compassion. You inspired everyone, including me. For the first time, Ethan felt the need to speak words he had been holding back. Princess Glora, I admire you. Not for appearances, not for title, but for your courage, your heart, and your wisdom. I want to stand by you, not just as a soldier, but as a partner. Glora regarded him with her large green eyes. There was no immediate answer, no grand declaration, just a moment of shared understanding. She nodded slowly, acknowledging the trust, respect, and connection that had grown between them. In that moment, Ethan realized that love, respect, and loyalty were far stronger than appearances or superficial judgments. His choice to act, to lead and to care had led him to understand the true value of character and courage. And as the twin moons of Zyphoria reflected off the city below, Ethan Hayes knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, he would face them with Glora, side by side, as equals, as partners, and perhaps one day as something more. The city of Zyphoria was alive with preparations. Banners of gold and sapphire fluttered in the wind, blending human symbols with Zyphorian emblems. The streets were filled with citizens, both human and Zyphorian, moving in excitement and curiosity. Today was not just a celebration of victory or peace. It was the wedding of Captain Ethan Hayes and Princess Glora. Ethan walked through the palace corridors, adjusting his uniform and checking on the human delegation. Soldiers and diplomats had arrived from across the galaxy, all eager to witness the union that symbolized not just love, but unity between two worlds. Yet, despite the grandeur and attention, Ethan felt a calm focus. This day was about commitment, trust, and respect, not appearances or spectacle. Princess Glora, meanwhile, was preparing in a chamber filled with bioluminescent flowers. She looked serene, yet determined as attendants adjusted her ceremonial robes. Ethan had watched her face in battle, in councils, and in quiet reflection, and he knew that her calm was not weakness, but strength. She had faced danger, led her people, and earned respect through action and courage. Today she would step forward not as an alien princess or a figurehead, but as someone who had earned trust, love, and admiration. When the ceremony began, Ethan stood at the palace altar, his eyes fixed on Glora as she entered. Her scaled hands held a ceremonial staff, her gaze steady and her posture dignified. She may have seemed unattractive by human standards, but Ethan's heart recognized strength, wisdom, and courage far beyond superficial judgments. The efficient, a respected elder of the Zyphorian Council, spoke in a voice that resonated with warmth and gravity. Today we celebrate not only the union of two individuals, but the union of two peoples, two worlds, and two hearts that have chosen understanding, respect, and love. Ethan took Glora's hands in his. The crowd fell silent as the ceremony continued. Words of promise and commitment were exchanged, not just vows of personal affection, but pledges of mutual respect, loyalty, and collaboration. Glora spoke first. Captain Ethan Hayes, you have proven your courage, your wisdom, and your compassion. You have acted with honor and integrity. I choose you as my partner, not for title, not for appearances, but for the values that guide your heart. Ethan's heart raced. He had faced countless battles and challenges, yet no moment had felt more profound than this. He replied, Princess Glora, you have shown me what true courage, leadership, and character mean. I choose you as my partner, not for your title, not for looks, but for the strength, wisdom, and kindness that define who you are. The elder raised a ceremonial staff signaling the union. By the laws of Zyphoria and the understanding of humans, you are now united as partners in life, leadership, and purpose. A cheer erupted from the crowd, but Ethan and Glora stood, quietly, sharing a moment of connection that needed no words. They had faced battles, crises, and doubt together, and now they stood side by side, equals in every sense. After the ceremony, celebrations continued across the city. Streets were lined with flowers, Citizens offered gifts and congratulations, and music filled the air. Humans marveled at Xiphorian traditions, while Xiphorians observed human customs with curiosity and delight. Ethan and Glora moved through the crowds, greeting citizens, soldiers, and diplomats alike. Everywhere they went, their presence inspired admiration and respect. People were no longer focused on appearances. They were focused on the union of character, courage, and shared purpose. As the day progressed, Ethan found a quiet moment with Glora atop one of the palace towers. The city stretched below them, glowing in the afternoon sun, alive with energy and hope. "You know," Ethan said, a soft smile on his face, "I never expected to feel this way about anyone, let alone someone I first thought I couldn't relate to." Glora chuckled softly, her scaled lips curving into a rare smile. "You learned quickly that appearances are not the measure of worth, Captain Hayes. It is deeds, character, and heart that define a person." Ethan took her hand, feeling the warmth and strength in her grip. "And you have shown me that true courage and wisdom come from within. I respect and admire you more than words can say." Glora's eyes softened, reflecting the sunlight. "And I have come to trust you, not only as a soldier or diplomat, but as someone whose heart and mind are steadfast. Together we will face whatever comes." The celebrations continued into the evening. Lanterns glowed along the streets, music filled the air, and citizens danced and laughed. Ethan and Glora joined in the festivities, moving among humans and Xiphorians alike. The union of two worlds was more than symbolic. It was real, tangible, and inspiring. As night fell, the palace held a private dinner for close allies and friends. Ethan and Glora sat together, reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. They spoke quietly about the battles, the challenges, and the lessons learned along the way. "You were there when it mattered most," Glora said softly. "Not only in battle, but in understanding me, the people, and the responsibilities we share." Ethan nodded. "And you were there for me, showing that courage, wisdom, and compassion are what truly matter. I've learned more from you than I ever thought possible." Glora smiled. "Then let us continue to learn from each other, not just as partners, but as leaders and friends. Together we can guide our worlds toward understanding and peace." The night ended with quiet reflection. Ethan and Glora looked out over the city, the twin moons casting soft light over the crystalline towers. Below them, humans and Xiphorians moved together, rebuilding, celebrating, and living in harmony. Ethan realized that their marriage was more than a personal bond. It was a symbol of hope, respect, and unity. It showed that differences in appearance, species, or culture mattered little when courage, intelligence, and compassion were the true measure of value. As they stood side by side, Ethan felt a deep sense of peace. He had faced danger, uncertainty, and prejudice, yet he had found someone whose character and heart matched his own. Glora had shown him that true admiration and love were based on qualities that could not be seen superficially, but felt and understood deeply. The union of Ethan Hayes and Princess Glora became a story that spread across the galaxy. It inspired other humans and alien civilizations to look beyond appearances, to value courage and integrity, and to embrace unity and respect. Their marriage was not only a personal commitment but a lesson in HFY, that humanity's strength lies in compassion, bravery, and moral courage. In the days and months that followed, Ethan and Glora worked together to strengthen alliances, improve diplomacy, and ensure peace between humans and Xiphorians. Their bond grew deeper, built on trust, respect, and shared experiences. And through it all, Ethan never saw Glora as unattractive again. He saw her as a leader, a partner, and a person of immense value. Someone whose courage, wisdom, and kindness made her shine brighter than any superficial standard could measure. The final scene of the story showed Ethan and Glora standing on a balcony, watching the city thrive. Children played in the streets below. Humans and Xiphorians worked side by side, and the stars above twinkled with promise. Ethan took Glora's hand. "Whatever comes next, we face it together," he said. Glora smiled. her eyes reflecting the light of the twin moons. "Together," she replied. In that moment, the story ended not with grandeur or spectacle, but with quiet strength, shared purpose, and the enduring truth that true value comes from courage, compassion, and character. And in the galaxy, their story would be remembered as a shining example of what humanity and true partnership could achieve.